Let's get ready to rumble!
Hello and welcome to Netflix vs. Cinema, the podcast that is three strong today. I am your host. My name is Tosin, and I am based up in the... I'm based in the Commonwealth City, quite close to the Commonwealth City. So the Commonwealth Games are kicking off around about half an hour from my house, and with the current cost of living crisis, I cannot afford a ticket to go. So, but that is me, and joining me, as always, on the Isle of Wight is Sharon Bollen.
Hello.
And joining me in Bournemouth?
The Isle of Wight.
Oh, rubbish. In the Isle of Wight this week is it's Shaun Harris. How are you guys doing?
Hiya.
Right. So this week, Sharon, you have to head off quite quickly, so you're not going to be with us for the full thing. So we're going to try and be a little bit disciplined here and not just prattle on forever. But what usually happens, for those of you who might never listened to us before, is that we go to the cinema and we see three things in the cinema. Oh, well, usually we see as many things as they will let us see in the cinema, depending on what's actually available. But we usually manage about three. We see three things in the cinema, see three things at home on streaming platforms. We rate them all out of 5, and then we decide at the end of it, where has the money been better spent this week? Has it been better spent on Netflix, or has it been better spent in cinema? With that, I know that this week we only really had one thing possible to catch in the cinema, because I thought they're releasing more stuff, but they're still drip feeding. I thought it was supposed to be summer, but no, they're not releasing a film every week. What is going on? And so we only really had one thing in the cinema to see this week, which was Where the Crawdads Sing. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, yes. That is. Okay, so seeing as that's the only thing that we have to see in cinema, and that the both of you have seen it, and that Sharon has to head off quickly, let's not waste any time. Let's get into it. Let's go. Go. Tell me, Where the Crawdads Sing. What is this about, and is it worth my time because I couldn't make it to the cinema this week? Been chained to a desk.
Well, it's based on a best-selling book from about 4 years ago, Where the Crawdads Sing, by Delia Owens, I think her name is. Basically, it's about a young girl called Kaya, who is called the Swamp Girl, or the Marsh Girl, because basically she's been raised in, her family were once wealthy and came down in the world, and basically over generations they have their circumstances become reduced, and they now live on the edge of a marsh on the Carolina coast. And she's lived there in this shack with her mum and dad and her 4 siblings. And then one day, when she's a very small child, when she's like 8 years old, her mother leaves. And then one by one, all her brothers and her sisters leave her. So she's left alone with her dad. He's a drunk, and he's violent, and he's abusive. But he can be nice when he's sober, but he's very rarely nice. And so as a small child, she learns how to make herself invisible around him, to make him not to anger him, and she starts to learn quite early on, where all her siblings live. So she starts to learn how to cook, how to look after herself, and how to get by. And then one day, basically, her dad disappears as well. So at the age of sort of 9 or 10, she's left on her own on a shack in the marsh on the edge of the town, and basically she is just abandoned by everyone. And so she starts to basically forge her own way. She starts making a living by picking mussels and selling them to the local shop. She starts to get an interest in the marsh and is fascinated by all the wildlife around her. Then you fast forward 10 years and you get this like a love triangle almost. There's a boy she knew when she was a child who was one of the only people, really one of the few people who was friendly towards her, a guy called Tate. And she sort of falls in love with him when she's a teenager, and he sees basically the difference between how she lives and how he lives is so vast that he leaves her. And then she falls in with this ne'er-do-well called Chase, who's a little bit of a ladies' man, is a little bit of a player in the area. And one day he is found dead under slightly mysterious circumstances, and all eyes basically turn to her. Yeah. And then the film is basically about what happened next.
All right. Okay, cool. So that is the setup, and I'm guessing that to go further would be to spoil stuff. And that's what I would imagine. To go further is to spoil stuff. So let's go over to Shaun. Shaun, what did you think of this?
Okay, what did I think of this? Well, I thought it started off really good. I was quite intrigued by the whole thing, and yeah, it was. And then it got a bit. I mean, maybe I'm not so smolchy. You know what I mean? I'm not into the smolchy stuff so much, the old lovey-dovey stuff. So that was sort of in the middle bit. It was a bit, because they kept having these flashbacks or whatever what do they call them in movies, where they go retro things, where what's happened in the past and all this sort of thing. So I found some of that sometimes going on a little bit too much. But I should imagine if you like schmaltzy stuff, it's lovely. I did, which I was so pleased of. I'm pretty sure Sharon probably did. I picked up on the whole thing pretty early about, or what I thought. It was just certain things in the movie that I picked up on, which, because there, it's one of these things. There's a lot of people who could have, a lot of people, there's a lot of people. It's like these who done. It's like there's a lot of people with motives to actually do the deed, and but it was, I would say, sort of when the. There's one scene where I think really about halfway through maybe, which really possibly gives the game away, but it's still intriguing towards the end. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it was quite a good movie. It was quite long, I think, though. It was a fairly long movie. Long. But I do like, I did enjoy the acting. I thought the acting was particularly good. I always like, what's the name of the actor who played the lawyer, Sharon? Because I always like him. He's sort of one of those underrated actors.
David Statham.
David Statham, that's it. Because he's in Memphis Belle and all those, and he plays a really sort of. He's always under the radar, but he's been in some great movies. So on the whole,
night and good luck.
Yes. That's a great one. So yeah, I quite enjoyed this. As I say, the middle bit, the smolchy bits went on a bit, but that's all part of the film. That's all to build up the who could have, who did have, who might have, you know what I mean? So I can understand why that's got to be in there like that. And the scenery was pretty nice. So yeah, on the whole, a pretty good movie. I don't know what Sharon's thoughts were.
All right, so you are like, good, give me the mystery, give me the court your room stuff.
Yeah.
Leave the schmaltz. Sharon, what did you think?
Yeah, I liked it. I have read the book, so that you obviously get more insight when you've read the book, and obviously there's elements of the book that aren't there in the film.
Well, this is the thing. I think we were talking. I'm not sure whether it was last week or the week before, but I was saying as how I think it's impossible for a film adaptation of a book to be as good as the book. That's just so I was actually interested because I've been hearing what people have been saying about this thing, and compared to the people who've read the book and people who haven't read the book. So I'm interested to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because obviously in the book there's lots of poetry, there's lots of imagery and symbolism, and they've tried to include some of that. But obviously when in a film it's a bit more explicit. So obviously when they say something, you're like, it's a clue. in the book it's more sort of breadcrumby, but I do think there's actually a little bit of signposting. As like Shaun and I are, we and you Tosin, we've watched films for years and we like films, and you pick up on imagery. So like we've said before, haven't we? If they show you a gun in the first
yeah,
someone's going to get shot by the end of the film because it wouldn't be there if it's not relevant. So certain scenes and certain things
exactly
about nature and about the environment, because it's actually referenced, you think that's going to be relevant, because why would they put it in there if it's not playing?
I'll tell you what one of my biggest ones is where you have a fight scene between two people and there's a window that keeps showing up in the shot in the background. You're like, someone's going through that window.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, it's a horror movie and someone is walking around with their back to a window. You're like, someone's coming through that window to grab you. You know this. Why do they keep putting these in films?
So there's some scenes and there's some imagery, some of the paintings on the wall, you're thinking, because she becomes an artist, and as someone who's like fascinated by the marsh and the things that live in the marsh, and so she's made this almost like a scientific study. In the book they make much more of that, but she has basically developed this sort of passion of an interest, and she looks at nature in its minutiae, and because she's been raised outside of society, her morality, her sense of what is right and wrong is entirely based upon what she's seen in nature. And so you see her she's learnt the lesson. So one of the lessons of a childhood was like, how does a mother or anyone who has given birth abandon their offspring? And then she looks in nature and she tries to find examples in nature. Does that happen in nature where a female would abandon the nest or abandon their young? And so she's entirely, her whole life is shaped by the environment around her. So it was fascinating. I enjoyed it. I thought they put enough of the book in the film to make it recognisable. Obviously, some scenes you think, I can understand why that wasn't in there, and some elements, like again, that all the poetry. You can't have poetry. Poetry doesn't work in a film. It just bores you and it distracts you. Whereas in a book, because the book's about words and about language and about the rhythm of words and how they mirror the rhythm of nature, how it works, but you can't. You have to let visual things sort of tell that story.
All right. You. Okay, so before I ask you for star ratings, Sharon, have you ever read Captain Corelli's Mandolin?
No.
You haven't? All right, cool. So, because Captain Corelli's Mandolin is a celebrated book, everybody yells and screams about how you should read this book. And there was a big furore when they were making a film version of Captain Corelli's Mandolin. And it's a bit similar with Where the Crawdads Sing. When the people were talking about this book, and when they said they were making because when I heard the title, I was like, who comes up with a title like that? And it's a book beforehand, and it's a book that was a bestseller. People talked about how great it was and all that. And I remember watching the film version of Captain Corelli's Mandolin and going, what the heck is all the fuss about? I remember watching the film version and going, if this properly represents the book, then I don't see why the book is that great. I'm not going to go for that. And so with this, I'm wondering, is there a similar thing where if you watch the film, would you be thinking, like, having read the book and watched the film, do you feel like the film represents the book properly, or do you feel like it's just like a lesser art form to tell the same story?
Yes, I think in some ways, yes, it is. It's like a shadow self because you don't get that richness of detail. You don't get those thoughts and that sense of isolation and why she has become so absorbed in her environment. So yeah, it's almost like a shadow version of the book. But for all that, I think my friend who hadn't read the book, she watched it and I could feel her going, oh, and and I don't think she guessed because and Appeased it. She was like, she's quite responsive. So whenever anything happens, she's almost like booing the bad guys and sort of like cheering the good guys. Like, ooh, So and I think she enjoyed it. And so to me, that's almost like a good indicator that someone who doesn't know the source material can still enjoy it. So yeah, I thought it wasn't a bad film. It wasn't a bad representation of the book by any means. So
so the moral of the story is don't read books. They just ruin films for you. So how many stars would you guys give it?
For me, I'm going to give it a 3-star. I mean, I enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong. I didn't think it was bad, but I did find it just a little bit too long. I found it a little bit too long. Once I realised what had gone on, it went on a little bit too long for me. But a 3-star, solid 3-star.
Okay, Sharon?
I agree. I would give it a 3. I enjoyed it. Again, I thought it was a good adaptation. It was an enjoyable film, and there's lots to like about it. But I don't think it was like elevated into that sort of higher level of art form. So to me, but it's certainly solid and enjoyable. So I would give it a 3. Quite happy.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'll see if I manage to get unchained from my desk and actually go to the cinema to watch this, because I was planning to go watch this. Although I've heard some people say that to have a go at telling the lyrical thing of the book, this probably should have been a TV series as opposed to a film, because then you have more time to sort of delve into the things that you're talking about, Sharon.
Yeah, I think
all right.
Okay,
I'll give that to Ben Travis of the Empire podcast. He's the one who said that, and I just sort of like regurgitated that. But okay, you know how we usually talk about people who get back in touch with us and give us correspondence. I've just had, you know how last week we reviewed the Sea Beast, or I reviewed the Sea Beast.
Yes.
That review just went up on Twitter, so I put on the YouTube review on Twitter, and we have somebody called Chris Williams who has liked our review, and that is Chris Williams. I'll read you what his Twitter bio says. It says, directed the Sea Beast for Netflix, directed on Bolt, Big Hero 6, and Moana. Yeah, storyboarded on Mulan, New Groove, and Frozen. I am the voice of Oaken somehow. So essentially, the director of the Sea Beast found our review, or has found a review, has popped up on his Twitter feed, and has liked our review. So I'm kind of like, yeah, Shaun, we were talking about voiceover stuff earlier. I think I'm asking for a job.
Yeah, excellent.
Might ask you for a job. All right, cool. Because Sharon, we know you have to head off soon. You have to head off quickly, and you have been diving into Paramount Plus.
Yes.
So, did you pay for Paramount Plus, or did you already have Paramount Plus free? Because I know that we don't like to spend too much money on this podcast.
Oh, no,
So,
I got it free with Sky.
and you have.
If you're a Sky customer, you've now got Paramount comes with it or something. I certainly didn't pay any money for it. You've just got to add the app to your. You've got to download or link or do something. But yeah, you don't have to pay for it.
All right, cool. And I have access to a Sky account. I'll put it that way. So, so I'll see if I have access to it. But quickly, you've been watching 1883, which is a prequel to a TV show called Yellowstone that none of us have watched. But tell us, when you finished watching this, what did you think of this?
Yes, I mean, to me, it doesn't matter if it's prequel because I'm like almost watching it in order. So it's a historical. So 1880 is basically the origin story of the Dutton family who feature largely in a film called Yellowstone, and that's just become well known because Kevin Costner sort of is the inspiration behind bringing like the Yellowstone universe or one of the powerhouses onto the small screen. And so they've got a big cast. So 1883 is basically the origin story of how the Dutton Ranch was founded. And we see the cast of characters basically in 1883. The transcontinental railroad has been built by this point, but for most poor immigrants and most people who are trying to save a bit of money, they still go overland. And the overland journey from basically the civilized eastern states of America across like the Indian territories, as they were called, the unsettled part of America, to the western coast where all the prime land is for people who want to settle and farm. It's still an arduous and a dangerous journey. This is in 1883s before when there's still before the suppression of like the Native American tribes. So there's still that element of danger, and there's a lot of lawlessness. It's in the post-Civil War years where a lot of that area of that western is quite unregulated and there's no civil defence, no civil law there. So basically, you've got this family played by Tim McGraw and his real life wife Faith Hill and their two children, a daughter Elsa and their son, little boy called John, who've decided that they're going to pack up life. He's post Civil War. He was in the army. He was in the army of the Confederacy. Have decided that there's no future for them back in the east. They're going to head west and they're going to settle in Oregon. And then they meet up with a guy played by Sam.
Sorry, Sharon. It's just Shaun. I don't know. I'm not sure if you're aware, but it just sounded as if you just started humming, and it sounded like you were trying.
Oh, did I? Sorry, that's me. Yeah, it's because I got these headphones in. I tend to do that. If I take these headphones out, can I take the headphones out, or is it too echoey? Let's just hear. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you started humming, and I was like, "Is that the theme tune to 1883?"
Is that? That's better. I told you, didn't I? I told you these headphones. What did I say when I put them in? I said they're not very good, didn't I?
Well, it was weird because I like the way you sound on the. I like the way you sounded on the headphones. But the problem was just that we could hear every little sort of like.
Oh, right. Okay.
Okay. So, but never mind. Sorry, Sharon, Tim McGraw, Faith Hill.
They're pay the Dutton family, and so they're going to head west on their own. They're going to like strike it out on their own. But early on in the film, they encounter some sort of bandits, and then they encounter Sam Elliott and his best friend called played by LaMonica Garrett, who are former Union soldiers, they are being employed to lead a group of mainly German and Eastern European settlers who want to farm in the Oregon Territory. And so these two group of people meet up, and then they basically head west across like Texas and then into the Indian Territories. And they basically meet every possible obstacle you can meet. There's rivers, there's bandits, there's the wildlife, there's the indigenous populations who don't want them there. And the thing is, like, they are battling against a hostile environment, the land that has not been settled. There's a reason why it hasn't got the cities there, that hasn't got like a large indigenous population there. It's because the land is hostile. It's too hot in the summer, it's too cold in the winter, and there's things that bite you, that sting you, that want to kill you. The rivers are fierce, they flood. So basically, this journey west is a bit of a nightmare. And over 10 episodes, you basically see most of the journey through the eyes of the daughter, Elsa Dutton. Her loves, her losses, and her feelings, and how basically the Dutton family crossed the mountains and the deserts and the plains, and finally settle in their own land, and that land endures, and then you see them again 150 odd years later in Yellowstone. So it's this journey of this family and how they basically try to forge their new path.
So do they sort of like link it by the end of this to Yellowstone?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay,
there are clear patterns, and there's the symbolism in it, because I've only watched the first couple of episodes of Yellowstone, because I watched 1883 first and I thought, oh, I'll go and watch some Yellowstone. And you can clearly see, I know obviously I put the sort of the horse before the cart, basically, because I saw it in the other way around to most people, so I could immediately see the symbolism from the first episodes that it linked in to everything I had seen in the origin story.
All right, cool. But if you wanted to do them in chronological order, you might want to wait until the Harrison Ford starring one that's in between Yellowstone and 1883. So, I don't know, because Yellowstone is like one of those things that people just keep talking about and I keep thinking, it just sounds like watching a family. How is this interesting? But you're saying that you started watching Yellowstone, so obviously you must have liked 1883.
Yeah, I've always liked westerns. It's one of those things it's been since my teenage years when I started reading westerns. I've always liked that western genre, and so this is basically like that. Not the revisionist westerns that we sort of had a phase in like the 60s. This is going back to almost like trying to find that sort of gritty realism without being too revisionist about it. So it is looking at that how the settlers, they were vulnerable to being predated upon by nature and by other people.
Yeah.
That the journey west was a hard one and brutal, and it took no prisoners. It showed no mercy, and this sort of shows that this unflinching, brutality of what it took to fight out or fight, sort of carve yourself a piece of a land that isn't yours.
Yeah, it reminds me. It makes me think of there's the film The Ballad of Buster Scruggs by the Coen brothers, and there's a short bit in it. Because there's like 6 short stories that is told in this one, and there's one of them that is very much about like the caravan and everything like that, and people going across. And I love what you said. Put that in my mind. But how many stars would you give this?
I think it's really well done. I mean, you can't fault Sam Elliott.
Can I just ask? Sorry, can I just ask? Is it action or is it more melodrama, or is it a bit of mixture?
It's action.
It's action.
There are elements of it, because my brother watched the whole season as well, and there is romance in it, but there is fighting and there is the brutality of it, the West. So I thought it was done very well done. So I would give it a 4. And my brother, because we didn't watch it together. Actually, we watched a couple of episodes together, and then we end up watching it separate. But we both really quite rated it. So I would certainly give it a 4. I think it's well worth it. The language is, severe. The violence is sort of bloody and brutal, but it wasn't gratuitous in any way. So it didn't. Obviously, there are scenes of horrible brutality, but we didn't go on it, so it wasn't gratuitous. But no, I thought it's good. Gave it a 4. And I would recommend it. I think it's certainly worth watching.
4 stars. That's 4 stars for 1883. Get your TV series net Western fix. As long as you do not get this. Okay. Obviously, this is almost like a dumb question to ask, because it would be weird if he didn't have it when he showed up on screen. But Sam Elliott must have his mustache in this, right?
He had his tash in it.
He had his tash. That tash could headline a film on its own. All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, Shaun.
I was just going to ask to say, you talked about the other series. I haven't really watched any of the Western series. I should. I think I watched a bit. There's one with the Dutchman in it or something, or like a big Dutch, but I can't remember. Was that?
There's Hell on Wheels.
Hell on Wheels was the one that I watched about 5 episodes of.
That's really good. It gets better as the series goes on. The first season is like a bit more formulaic, and then it becomes a little bit more.
Ian McShane's in it, and he's like this sheriff.
That's Deadwood.
Deadwood then. Deadwood. It must be Deadwood.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sharon. I didn't
Yeah,
see the whole lot, so I only caught like 3 or 4 episodes.
Because when you said a Western series, I was like, well, Deadwood is the big daddy of Western series.
That would be the one. Ian McShane is like the sheriff or whatever he is.
He's a saloon keeper.
Oh, right. Oh, maybe I'm confused. Maybe I've seen a couple of episodes of both, and I've got them mixed up because there's so many in that vein. And
you're like, he had a hat and he was on a horse. He had a hat and he was on a horse. Must have been the same show.
I just remember a giant Swede bloke in it and a train and stuff. And
that's Hell on Wheels with the giant
That
Swede.
is Hell on Wheels. So I must have seen both then and got them confused with each other.
Deadwood. So yeah, you got two. Yeah, a bit converted.
All right, cool. So Sharon, I believe we have to let you go now.
Yes, I have to be off.
Yes, you have to be off because you're taking your mum to, what was it, a choir concert.
Choir concert, yes.
Well, enjoy it. Enjoy it. Sharon has left us. Sharon has gone away. And we now have Shaun. What else you saw this week? And you have, well, okay, now, this is the thing. I'm trying to decide whether this is you being a discerning viewer and saying, ooh, you know what? That looks like it might be good. I should watch this. Or whether this is you finally being taken over and finally being controlled by the Netflix algorithm. And they just shove something in your face and say, watch this. And you're like, okay. So which one is it?
Okay, well, it's neither actually, Tosin. Basically, It was someone said to me that, it's a really, really good movie, like on Netflix, like this. It's like John Wick and the Nobody, and it's really good. It's probably, I think it's better than John Wick, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, I better watch that then. And he said, The Grey Man. So I thought, well, so that's the reason. But yeah, it might have been algorithms as well, or it might have just been, So I thought, because I'm gonna see that then, so I can compare it. If it's supposed to be better than John Wick, then
this is like it's a big Netflix release, and they put a lot behind it. They put a lot behind it because they've gotten like A-list stars. It's directed by the Russo brothers, who directed Avengers Endgame and Avengers Infinity War. So this is Netflix going big hitters. So tell me about this.
Okay, so this is basically the story. There's a prisoner who the CIA decide to recruit as like a super assassin, and the basic stories like that, and he becomes, and then he sort of gets betrayed a little bit, so he goes great because he works in the grey area, so he goes, and then they get contractors to try and kill him. So there's lots of people. They say it's almost like put a contract out so that everybody wants to kill him. So loads of money.
So far, so a bit sort of like Jason Bourne,
John Wick, all that sort of stuff. So, so there's basically the film is, they're trying to find him. They're trying. Oh, and my little old favourite lady's in this as well, which was a bonus.
Okay, all right, okay. For those of you who maybe have not listened to any other episode of the podcast, Shaun has a particular affinity for Ana de Armas, and I mean, let's be honest, that is the same with a lot of people. Have a particular affinity for Ana de Armas. A bit like Sharon has a particular affinity for Mads Mikkelsen. So
I mean, that was a bonus. And she sort of, as these movies go, you get people that sort of help and people that people who've seen the John Wick one. It's a standard formula. It's a standard movie of really sort of almost super gun toting martial arts, all the rest of it, taking on the world. It's sort of highly stylized. In this movie, you've got just like they have thrown some money at this movie because you can see it's just like explosions and just about everything that goes on. So anyway, so you've got so he's on the run, and then you've got Chris Evans, who's like he is just the most over the top contractory CIA blokey that is just like, that's it, no holds barred. We're just going to do what we have to do if it comes down to killing children, or if it comes down to blowing things up. It doesn't matter, and it's very, very much that way all the way through. There's lots of shooting, there's lots of action, there's lots of explosions. There's, basically there's like 10 groups after him, shall we say, and 4 of them turn up, but he manages to, do. So it is, and there's a lot of fighting. There's a couple of things in this which I think are probably a little bit over the top because they're in a foreign country, and basically, well, I don't really want to spoil it, but let's just say they basically destroy a lot of. There's a lot of collateral damage. Which I think would attract a lot of publicity. I mean, so much publicity that they wouldn't want the CIA. But that's the nature of the movie, I guess.
Well, you see, that's the thing. It's one of these things that we've done because I mean, I remember that we've spoken about some other films. Another Netflix film which had the Russo brothers involved, Extraction with Chris Evans. No, not Chris Evans. The other Chris Hemsworth. And in that one, it's kind of like there's in some ways it's almost like a throwback. It's a throwback to like an 80s action movie where if it's in America and we're doing stuff where people are going to pay attention, but if it's anywhere else in the world, they don't care. We can do whatever.
It's like that film. It's like that film Team America.
Oh yes, yeah. It's like, don't worry, everybody. We saved Paris. Like that kind of. You just go around the world and you just there is something in the American action movie where if you go to any other place that isn't America, usually someplace in Europe, you can blow it up and nobody cares.
Yeah. So that was a little bit, and obviously for me, you know how I feel about the showdowns at the end.
Yep. You do not like. You think a lot of showdowns at the end are very stupid, and you think that they rely on people doing things that you wouldn't do if you had a brain.
Especially when it's unnecessary. Do you know what I mean? You take the. All right, no matter how hard you are, I'm pretty sure you would take the sure option, wouldn't you? Then
which is shoot them in the head. Don't go for a fist fight.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say with this, it was. I mean, with John Wick, that was all sort of fairly low. You know what I mean? There wasn't masses of explosions and lots of destruction. That it was very much man on man. Like.
Well, at least the first one.
At least the first one, yeah, that's true. Yeah, good point.
At least the first one, because when you talk about John Wick, now I'm having to reassess my thinking of John Wick and go the first one because I feel like as those films went along, they became fuzzier and less lean. The first one is like lean, muscular, no fat, no nothing. It's kind of like we're here for action, we're here for stylized stuff, and it's you were talking about it being like a bit formulaic. And I don't have a problem with the formula. Because if you have a formula, but you say, but we're going to give you over the top action, like The Raid, the film, The Raid. Yeah. It's the storyline is these guys are trying to get to the top of a tower so they can get the guy who's in charge. That's the end of the story. And then it's the action that makes you go, what the heck am I watching? Same thing with John Wick. John Wick, they killed his dog. He wants to get revenge. Is there anything else to the story? No, that's it. Yeah. But then the action that they actually put all around the whole thing. And so I think with a formula, if you're going to have a formula, if you're going to be formulaic in your storytelling, then I'm fine with that as long as you deliver on telling it properly and you deliver on, I guess in the cases like this, in the action. So the question is, do they do that?
Wow. Some of the time, and so some of the time, but there are a few moments where it's like a bit, especially the foreign country scene, I'm like, wow, it's like, and it's fun to see and it's great and it's expressive. And so, I don't put it in the John Wick or Nobody drama. I mean, it's okay film. Don't get me wrong. It's quite fun with like we say, the standard formula, but there's nothing particularly special about it except there's a lot of money poured into it and there's a lot of big explosions and couple of silly moments. So, but enjoyable film nevertheless. An enjoyable film. So sure. This would take a 3-star. This one. This is a standard formulaic action movie. With a couple of flaws.
You see now, Shaun, this is one of those points where I look at it and I go, you know what Sharon was saying earlier about how maybe we watch too many things, and so because we watch too many things, it sort of lessens our enjoyment of some things. Because I have a very similar thing to you. Like for instance, now if I watch an action movie and let's say there's a car chase or something, and let's say somebody. Typical car chase thing. It's a scene. You're driving cars around Paris. There's a cafe with curbside seating. Somebody sort of spins the car and then they hit a table. The table flies into a cafe and you can see people sat in the cafe in the window. And I'm thinking, they've just killed that bystander. They just killed that person. That's okay. You're just gonna treat it like it was nothing. And I'll find it really hard to concentrate on the rest of the action because I'll be like, you just killed a bystander back there. You haven't addressed the fact you just killed somebody. And maybe it's because I watch too many films. Maybe it's because I'm getting older. But those are sort of things that some people would argue that you need that for an action movie. I don't know whether you do. But I find it really, really hard to ignore in action movies nowadays. I'm just kind of like, you just killed a random bystander. You just treated them as background for your explosion, and I am not okay with it. I am not okay with it. But it's, I mean, when I was a kid, hey, that would have been the best thing ever. But anyway. Right, okay, so now we get into the final thing we're going to talk about this week, and that is Better Caul Saul Season 1. Now, I sent you a message earlier, Shaun, sent you and Sharon a message, and Holly, who cannot be here with us today because she's a bit ill, saying that I finally finished watching Better Caul Season 1 about 7 years after I first started watching Season 1. Because Better Caul Saul is the prequel to Breaking Bad, and it focuses on what you'd say is a minor character in Breaking Bad, and who is in Breaking Bad is called Saul Goodman, and his whole thing, he has this TV advert, so it goes Better Caul Saul, and so they call the TV show Better Caul Saul, and it goes back and shows you how he became the character you found him in Breaking Bad. So prequels, no big fan of prequels, and with this, I think I started watching it, and because you know, of how Breaking Bad ended, and Breaking Bad ended on such a high and everything. And then this starts off again, and this starts off, and if I'm going to be honest, it starts off similar to the way Breaking Bad itself starts, where Breaking Bad starts in a very sort of, I feel like there would have been a lot of people that would have done to Breaking Bad what I did with Better Caul Saul, which is you start watching it, the first couple of episodes, and you go, oh, it's a bit slow moving. There isn't really much happening. Oh, I don't really know. Oh, I got distracted, or something else happened, and next thing you know, it's been 2 years and you haven't watched another. You haven't picked up where you left off. And I think that's what happened with me with Better Caul Saul. I kind of thought, well, it's a bit slow. At the beginning, they were releasing them episode by episode on Netflix. Got busy with something else. Wasn't getting that engaged with the story. Went off, and then 3 years later, I was surprised and shocked to find out the show was still going because I was like, what? But what I saw in the first season, how is the show still going? And not only was the show still going, but the show was being talked about, as in people were saying this is one of the best things on TV. It's one of the most cinematic things on TV. It's something that you need to get back, you need to watch. They need to throw all the awards at it. And I was like, really? And now it's on season 6. So it's got to season 6. It's like the final season of the show. Everybody's talking about, and people, the levels of chat about this have gotten similar to the levels of chat that Breaking Bad had at the end. So I went, you know, I really don't want to. It reminds me of when I was reading Lord of the Rings. Have you ever read the book Lord of the Rings, Shaun?
I have, yes, I have actually, yeah. So which is why the film. Yeah, go on. Sorry, Sam. I'll let you finish.
Is this going to be a book versus film thing again?
No, because I think the films, I know there's a few different bits and a bit left out in that, but I think the films are really good compared to the. This is what we say about Cat. When you read the book, you get a mental picture of the characters.
Yeah.
And I thought what was so good about Lord of the Rings is the characters that I had the mental picture of
were exactly what you saw on screen.
Very, very similar. They weren't like. So everybody must have. That's why they're so popular, because I've read a book, not many, and then I've seen the film, and I've still got the character of the. I don't read so many books now, and I've done it vice versa, where I've seen a film and then read a book, and the character in the book is how you picture him in the film instead of in your own mind. So.
And I would agree with you with that on Lord of the Rings. I think it's probably one of the best adaptations we've ever seen of a book because I feel they nailed it. However, my point of this when it comes to Better Caul Saul is when I was reading the first Lord of the Rings book, I got to this bit which is the Council of Elrond in the middle of where they're all deciding what they're going to do, and this goes on for ages. And I remember I got there and it was like a break. It was like hitting a brick wall. I couldn't get past it. I put the book down. I'll try and pick it up, and I put the book down for a year. And I did not pick up Lord of the Rings for a year. Picked it up again, and I just thought, I'm going to skip the Council of Elrond, jump forward a couple of pages, and then just zip through the rest of the whole saga. And I feel like that's what happened with me with Better Caul Saul. I got to a bit where it just got to, I was like, where are we going with this? I don't know where we're going. Because this is a very poetic show. It's a very lyrical show. It's a very kind of, they will show you a shot of something, and they will not explain why that thing is important. And then you only find out as things unfold that you realize, oh, that's what they're doing with this thing. And I think that it's really, really well done. It's so I picked it up again, and I have to be honest with you, Shaun, I'm glad I picked it up again, because even the first season, where I know I have 5 more seasons to get to, I doubt I'm going to catch up with them before the finale happens. But it's the where it goes and the story it tells and the sort of the relationship he has with his brother is really, really well done. And it's not just him. They also show there's another character in Breaking Bad called Mike, who is a brilliant character. And for me, he has the greatest final line of any character in any TV series that I think I've ever seen. His final line that he has in Breaking Bad, the way he delivers it before he because the graphics are kind of like, bye, I'm out of this season. I love Mike's final line. And then, so you have Mike and you get to see a little bit of background for Mike. And the brilliant thing that they've done is that in Breaking Bad, these guys were so minor. They were minor, but they were intriguing. Every time they showed up on screen, you were like, I want to know more about that person. What's up with that person? And they use them in the story in Breaking Bad. But so now that they've gone back and they're filling in their background, it doesn't feel like, let's say when you saw Solo, a Star Wars story, and they're trying to sort of give you an excuse for every little thing that, oh, this is how he got his blaster, this is how he got the Millennium Falcon. It doesn't feel like it's myth busting. It feels like it's just adding richness to it. So I think this is a brilliant, brilliant show. I think I'll give it a 4 out of 5 for season 1.
That's good, yeah. I mean, I've never watched Breaking Bad, so I don't. Everybody said it's really, really good, but I've never seen it. I mean, yeah, so I can't really comment. I mean, do they correspond with each other, or could Saul be just like you could watch that and
you could watch Better Caul Saul, never having seen Breaking Bad, and you wouldn't, you would still enjoy it. Because it's only later on that they start trying to link the two together. Right, there's some characters who show up in the 3rd or 4th episode of Better Caul Saul that are in Breaking Bad. And I remember when they showed it, where you're like, oh, Tuco! What's Tuco doing here? and it's funny because the whole thing about Breaking Bad was about change and about how people change over time and how people start off as one thing. And they always said that they wanted to take Mr. Chips and turn him into Scarface. And that was the whole thing. And so when you see a character that's in Breaking Bad and Better Caul Saul, they are very different. And it's almost about how does this person become that person. And I think that's what Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould, who made this, that's what they figured out, that you don't just want to see the same character and, this is how he got that scar on his chin or something like that. It's about there is a definite, and even with the character of, because when you meet Saul in this show, he's not called Saul, he's called Jimmy McGill. And it's about how Jimmy McGill becomes Saul Goodman. And they have all these moments where you think, that's where it could have gone left or right. And it's very realistic, the motivations of the characters and what actually happens with it. But that's all I would say. I would recommend it. And if you wanted to pick one of them, I would say with either Breaking Bad or Better Caul Saul, beware that there are some slow moving bits at the beginning.
Right. Yeah.
But
it's worth in the long game. It's okay.
Season 1. By the time I got to season 1, end of season 1, I was like, okay, cool. Now I see it, and there was a bit of me that wishes I kept watching it. But yeah, that's it. So that is us done for this week. We have 4 stars for Better Caul Saul. Us done for the week. And Shaun, it's not really worth it, is it? Who won Netflix or cinema?
Probably not this time. Probably not, because it's like one against. Oh no, yeah, one against 3 the wall. Yeah, I think it was just overwhelmed with. So let's just call it quits.
Let's not even give a winner this week. But we have to say cinema. Okay, I'm feeling emboldened here. I'm feeling emboldened because we've just had an actual director of an actual Hollywood film, of several actual Hollywood films, who has liked something that we said on Twitter. So I'm feeling emboldened, and I'm feeling like the industry is listening to us. I'll say we call this podcast Netflix versus Cinema, but we really, really love cinema. We love going to the cinema. We love watching things, and we love there being new things to watch in the cinema. Yes. So if you could please fix it. And I know that there's been a Marvel movie that's been released, but that was like 3 weeks ago. And it's been a while. Really something new.
I think the only thing they got next week is Bullet Train, isn't it?
Well, yeah, Bullet Train, and you mentioned something else that you were thinking about. Maybe, oh no, the Railroad Children is already here.
Yeah, which is already out. So
yeah, so it just where are all the films?
There's not a lot, is there? Oh no, I tell a lie. There's the 40th. Must be the 40th anniversary edition of RoboCop, which I put for. That's
RoboCop
Tuesday
is
night.
40 years old.
Well, yeah, I think it must be 82. Yeah, 1982.
No, RoboCop. Oh, what?
The original RoboCop. So
RoboCop was not that early.
That's been booked and ready to go. Perhaps it wasn't, but.
Oh no, I'm sorry. 1987.
1987 then. So what would it be? 25 years. 25 years.
1987. Oh, good lord.
Yeah,
no, it'll be longer than that. It'll be longer than that.
What will it be then?
35.
35 years, yeah.
35
Sorry, I knew
years.
it was something, but I just saw it there and I thought, yeah, that's
not far
go.
off.
There's a whole bunch of us going to that.
Good God, RoboCop is almost 40 years old. Oh, okay. So obviously, I'm gonna go lie down somewhere and think about my life and think about where all the time has gone. When RoboCop, an upstart of a film, is now nearly 40 years old. Oh, good lord. Oh, okay. I'm also gonna go see why that baby's crying. but anyway, until next week, it's a goodbye from me.
Yeah, and it's a goodbye from me.
And if Sharon was still here, it would be a goodbye from her too. And
Yeah,
also
be a
a
good night
goodbye
from her
and
too.
get well soon to Holly. Thank
Thanks,
you very
Dubs.
much for joining us. See you later, man.
See you, mate.